Hi there, everyone. My name is Max Young, and I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of Vroman's Bookstore to tonight's event. Tonight, we are lucky to have with us three local authors who will be each presenting their works. We're so grateful that you can continue to support us throughout this tough time, and that we're able to continue bringing authors to you. This evening's event includes about 5-minute Q&A portions with each of the authors. So if you would like to ask the author a question at any point, you can go ahead and click this Ask a Question button down there. And we'll go ahead and get to that around the last 5 minutes of their presentation. And to support our bookstore as well as these authors, you can click this green button right here to purchase their books from our store. So with that said, let me go ahead and introduce our first author. First off, we have Melissa Fischer, who was born and raised in Southern California. They earned bachelor's and master's degrees in civil engineering from Stanford University. Melissa spent 5 years in Africa, including 2 in Ghana, where they managed a water and sanitation agency in a region impacted by gold mining. Melissa has worked over 30 years as a civil engineer in construction, public works, development, and relief work. And with that all said, I will go ahead and let them take over. Thanks y'all so much.
Thanks, Max. Good evening. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And thank you to Vroman's for the honor of reading from your beautiful, venerable platform. I'm Melissa Fischer. I'm reading tonight from my novel, The Advocacy. It's set in Ghana, and it is about who gets good water and who decides. This is in the context of the extraction of natural resources. In this case, a gold mine is contaminating local water supplies. It's about a particular village, Jimisu Kakraba, who loses their water source to mining activity. They reach out to our protagonist, Louisa Lehman, who is a civil engineer and Peace Corps volunteer working in the area, managing a nonprofit that reaches out to local rural communities to help improve their water and sanitation. Louisa is a person of fluid gender. The novel is set in the early 1990s at a time when there isn't a lot of language for that experience. But through her interaction with the people of Jimisu Kakraba, they pull her into Ghanaian culture in a way that lets her see something beyond gender. The cover here features a really beautiful work of Ghanaian art. This is the staff of office of the royal linguist. The linguist must be a master of the myths, parables, proverbs, and symbols of the Akan culture, which they use to convey the chief's mission with Shakespearean eloquence. This staff is a uniquely Ghanaian symbol of advocacy. And within the novel, the advocacy is the name of this nonprofit agency that Louisa is managing. The first epigraph reads, "If one looks long enough at almost anything, something is given." This is from Journal of a Solitude by Maile Sarton, and it really sets the tone for the novel. This is an introspective novel. Louisa spends a lot of time thinking about Ghanaian culture, herself, and her family in relation to this activity of extracting natural resources. I love epigraphs. They give the author a chance to say to the reader, read through this lens. And I always get excited whenever I come across the source of an epigraph. It gives me a little bit of a deeper insight into the author. And I'm going to read to you the source of that quotation. So this is Maile Sarton. Simone Weil says, "Absolute attention is prayer." And the more I've thought about this over the years, the truer it is for me. I've used the sentence often in talking about poetry to students to suggest that if one looks long enough at almost anything, looks with absolute attention at a flower, a stone, the bark of a tree, something like revelation takes place. Something is given. And perhaps that something is always a reality outside the self. We are aware of God only when we cease to be aware of ourselves, not in the negative sense of denying the self, but in the sense of losing self in admiration and joy. Chapter 1. No one is interested in an engineer's tale, but everyone needs a civil engineer. Humanity can live without airplanes and missiles, cars and computers, but a shelter within which to sleep and harbor one's children, a cistern or well for drinking water, a road to travel in the harshest weather, a bridge to cross a river, a sanitary means to dispose of waste. These necessities bestow upon the civil engineer a universal passport. The small boy sits to my right. On my left, Techi, one of 4 Ghanaians who comprise our health team, alternately mops his brow and nods off in the heat. I stare at Ghana's red earth. Earth is the source of all things. I taste the scent of damp iron, so strong that iron grains must pepper the air. The rich smell feels fertile. Iron, the scent of structural beams hoisted for erection. The aroma of the birthplace of humanity. Construction and procreation, the twin phenomena by which possibility is manifest in the outer world and within. So this opening scene, the advocacy has come to a village and they're waiting for a durbar or meeting to begin so the community can talk about their water situation. A bit later in the scene, Louisa thinks, how would a poet speak of the monotony of waiting in this humidity? I let my mind jump the track. It's so much easier to do in Africa. A long sanded bench of wawa wood, upon which, in damp silence, wait Techi, Akua is Louisa's local name, the boy, and the chairman. Families summoned from their plots. Constellation of subsistence farmers. Potency growing, unseen. The Durbar mound. Red dust. Vacant. My heart slows to an ancient rhythm. Louisa lives in Obuasi, which is the heart of the mine, and she often visits with her neighbor Idrisu, who is a tailor and loves to hear about her day. So she has told Idrisu about the situation in Jimisu Kakraba. And he has responded, you know, in America, this would never happen. In America, everybody has good water. And when Louisa tries to set him straight, he will not hear it. So in this scene, she's gone back home and she's writing a poem. All the people have water. Corporations cherish integrity. Conduct bears dignity. Government spurns indecency. Civil engineers sanctify water. In a great nation called America. It is impossible to challenge Idrisu's tautology. Even the Rodney King case could not tarnish America's image. Idrisu loves to read the Newsweek magazine that is given gratis to every Peace Corps volunteer. I watched the videotape of the beating on the Voice of America at the American House in Accra. Idrisu read of the acquittal of the officers just a few weeks ago. Such is the time it takes for the magazine to make it to Ghana, to Obuasi, through my thorough reading and into his hands. He took my breath away when he said, "They released the officers, Akua. They released the officers who did nothing wrong." It is not my place to strip Idrisu of what evokes his passion for the highest good. I know how rudderless I would be if someone took Africa from me. Mr. Osei is a member of the advocacy and someone who Louisa has felt frustration at his confusion about her gender. And this scene is much later in the novel after they have shared some intense experiences. I recall Osei's cavalier reference to me as a man, then a woman. He works with me every day and cannot sustain a clear perception of my gender. Or so I had thought. I move along the top of a soggy berm of gutter muck, parallel to the open gutter. The customary stench has abated. The typical stagnant gray froth, disguised as rain runoff, overflows into the street. Perhaps there is no confusion. Perhaps Osei makes no attempt at clarity regarding details of no relevance. The hill is steep and homes on the high side are built 10 feet above the level of the road with narrow, steep steps leading up. There's nowhere beyond the gutter to dodge an errant vehicle. Like his telling of the exact time, does Osei offer gender identifiers that he perceives to be of value to me? His errors, do they betray effort to remember the eccentric needs of a guest? Are they not errors at all, but compensations for the inadequacy of the language of gender? I will leave you with the words of a sign painter, a hand painter of signs, as quoted by Lockhart in Psyche Speaks. You will want to know this is a dying art. No one has time for it anymore. No one loves it enough. Not like Ghiberti. Ghiberti took 25 years with his doors. And Lockhart goes on to say, the doors Ghiberti had labored on and loved and left to us. The art of writing is very much alive. Writing as listening. Writing as wonder, as that absolute attention of which Weil speaks. I take up a pen for the chance to witness the grace of something greater, as it must have been for Ghiberti when he took up his chisel, summoning the magnificence of the doors on the baptistry of St. John. Thank you for listening.
Virtual round of applause, everyone. That was awesome. We'll go ahead and move on to the audience Q&A now. It looks like there is a question for you. And the question is, Melissa, did you know when you were living in Africa that you might write a book someday? And how did you keep good notes on your experiences there for the book?
Oh, yes. I think since I was a child, I have always loved fiction, and I always knew I would grow up someday and write a novel. And I had a sense that I needed to have adventures. I needed to live some in the world to have something to write about. And I kept 3 sets of journals when I was in the Peace Corps. I kept a professional journal of my work. That's something engineers do. I learned in construction every day. You write down what happened and sign and date it. I wrote a set of journals as if I was speaking to friends and family, so that I could tell them that story. And then, of course, I kept my personal journal. And so I had that material when I sat down to write.
Yeah, and it definitely came in handy for when you created this story, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thank you so much, Melissa. You were awesome. Oh, it actually looks like one more question appeared. I'll go ahead and read it out to you. Have you recently visited Ghana, and what was your reaction?
I have not recently visited Ghana. I left Ghana in 1994, and I knew that my story was tied to that time and that place. And I did not want to have competing perceptions of a modern or a changed Ghana. Although one of my epigraphs is from Otto Quayson, who wrote Oxford Street, Accra in 2014, which is a little more recent. And I think he saw me somewhere in an interview. I had commented that Ghana has changed, and that I imagine everybody's walking around with a cell phone in their ear, which would really, I imagine you could even go to a rural village and people walking around with cell phones. And for me, this would really violate what I treasured, which was the immediacy of the moment, that everyone was present in the place, in the moment, because there were not all of these distractions. And, you know, the more we learn about social media, and that the whole intent of it is to claim our intention, to steal it from us, actually. I feel really lucky to have been in Ghana when I was. Otto also assures me that these days there are hundreds of American students walking the streets of Accra, having a wonderful time at night. So, but personally, I hope to go there. I will go there now. I feel free. I've paid my way by writing the book, so I can go back. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Another virtual round of applause for them. They were awesome. Next up, we have with us Marilyn and Robertson. Marilyn has work published in Speechless the Magazine, the Boston Literary Magazine, Chopin with Sherry's, a tribute in verse, a poem of the month for writers at work, and a poem in the online journal Capital in Maine. UCLA Extension featured her in a success story series, and a poem and accompanying essay of hers appears in the book Masterclass, The Poetry Mystique. So I will go ahead and let them take the screen now.
Hey, good to see everybody. I'm going to read from my first book, Noir Librarian. I used to be a librarian back in the day, back when it was with the school district. So that was when elementary librarians were funded by the feds. And so I was really lucky to get to be a librarian as well as a teacher. And then, of course, the funding got cut. But then I spent a lot of time downtown being the librarian for the school district. And it's dedicated, you know, librarians love to do that. It's dedicated to my dad, Marvin Nottingham, and there's a poem in here that features him. And of course, to my husband, Kurt. And I also want to mention that on the back is a wonderful blurb by Suzanne Lummis, who's my inspiration, and a wonderful picture by Alexis Ron Foncher, who has been very supportive. So I'm a big fan of librarians, actually. And the first poem is called Librarians, and it's the true story about librarians. And then I get into 10 poems of noir librarian, and then there are other things too I'm going to read. So the first one is Librarians. Shushers, guardians in boxy sweaters, sensible shoes. Their sharp eyes squint through pinched spectacles, follow clues to track down more than the questioner needed, wanted. Acquainted with dust, transparent like air, they classify thought. Their desire to know, relentless. They move into dangerous territory, pluck, split open, offer knowledge, visceral, cerebral, carnal. They don't discriminate, don't judge, relish the delicacies, resist surveillance, subversive. Quiet! The revolution's already begun. That's what real librarians do. But now this is the first noir librarian poem. View from the stacks. You hear it before you see it. One corner of the book truck rolling into view, then rounding, and there she is. A bombshell in a bun. Her tortoiseshell specks dangling tantalizingly low. She gives new meaning to the word stacks. Her legs long and slender, ending in heels of pure polyurethane. As she bends to check spines, her soles make only the faintest squeak against the marble linoleum. As she passes, you catch her scent, alluring but subtle, like book paste. A scent you could savor if only she were to lean right over your shoulder, her cheek close. You ask, where can I find your number? Her eyes scan you like a shelf. Look in the index under scram. The next one, of course, everybody knows about the Dewey Decimal System and how everything has its number. So this is about that. Noir librarian has his number. She slips in through the back door of her old bar stool, still empty since she'd gone away to earn her MLS. A tough day behind her, she orders a tall one. Notices a guy hunched in a trench coat with a fedora pulled down low, nursing a Guinness, a fleck of foam stuck on his upper lip. His glance slides her way, looks her up and down. She looks like the kind of gal who knows things. Still, he asks the bartender, where can I find a gun? She overhears, pulls out a cigarette, tamps it down, lights and drags deep, blows the match out slow. A gun, she repeats. That would be 683.4. Or, she counters, there's gun control, 363.33, though control was what he was losing. 799 is guns for sport, she adds, but she can tell that he's not in the mood for games. He turns, takes her all in, throws back the contents of his glass, and runs, running. That's 796.3. Now, there are actually 10 poems about the noir librarian, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the rest, even though they're really, well, they have to do with what librarians really did do, like read banned books, or contemplate quiet, or protect your privacy. But this one was in Wide Awake, which is one of the great books of all time, edited by Suzanne Lummis. And it's called How to Eat an Orange, and it's dedicated to my husband, Kurt, of 50 years, I might add. A rancher's son, he knows about oranges. I watch the way his practiced hands surround it, measure its size and weight, the way he probes below the navel, takes his time, presses in on sun-blushed skin with thumbs, spirals down and around as if sculpting something out of clay. He loosens its resistance, pulls back the stringy pith, the skin a shell. He rejoins as if intact, the fruit fully exposed. He spreads apart the sections. The air grows tart. He hands me one, takes another up to meet his lips. When they're ripe, he tells me, they come off the tree, right in your hand. This one is, it doesn't say it's dedicated to my father, but it was a memory of my father called jacarandas. I love those trees. My father didn't know the name of any trees, and so I called them all jacarandas. And we'd laugh. We didn't know what a jacaranda was. Migrants from South America, their spring trumpets blast around corners, down avenues, astonished. My heart beats faster. Their violet canopies explode, vibrate from the color spectrums far aside. Under them, I expect to levitate, my hair to rise. But nothing happens. I've watched motorists swerved to drive right under them, wheels clattering in the gutters. But soon it's all gone, like the laughter that spilled out of our car windows when all the trees were jacarandas. We had many, many pets back in the day, many pets, including 2 sets of dogs. But what happens when dogs get old? Old dogs cough like consumptives. They wake you at night as they lick, lick, lick. They groan as they turn, dreaming of having to get up. Their hips give out suddenly, as if dropped from air. They take pills, spit them out, no longer make it up to the backyard. Once they dragged you uphill, your arms stretched. Now you drag them, collars tight behind their ears. After years of failed training, they show some restraint when passing other dogs, resist as rude barks are hurled from behind protective fences. Old dogs don't groom themselves so well, develop a smell, sneak up on the couch for a snooze when your back is turned, useless as sentries asleep at their posts. Old dogs won't get better, he tells me, our vet of 30 years, his hair thin, my shoulders stooped, our children grown. They don't age like we do. This is also from Wide Awake, and it's about dogs. And it's actually from the point of view of one of the dogs. One of 9 dogs taking obedience training in Griffith Park. And needless to say, since our dogs were virtually untrained, this amazed us. This really happened. We're out early. A motley pack in shades of brown, medium size, cockers, terriers, mixes. Yet we move as one. Our collars tight, all 9 leashes in his hand. He's collected us one by one from our apartments. Our people have abandoned us to him. If we slow or turn our heads, he hisses. On the park's dirt path, we trot. Stop, sit, stay. He drops all 9 leashes, struts a ring around us. We think we could run away, but we don't move. Other dogs rush by with their people who pull them as they jog, talk, and eat. Our noses quiver, but we hold them high. Our attention is focused, our ears perked. When he says trot, we trot. He stops, we stop. When his finger points, we sit. We lie down. We stay. I'm not sure why. We don't even know who he is. I wanted to read this one too. It's even though I didn't mark it, because it's called The Itch or The Arsonist. We've been having fires, as you know, and there have been fires closer to me than I wanted to have them be. And I wondered, what would it be like if you set them? That itch, or the arsonist. Shadows reach, dapple the asphalt. Hawks whoop, surfing air. Tumbleweeds cling, ready to roll. Desert breath blows. Treetops twist. Sweat salt licks my skin. I itch. All it takes is one red spark. I kneel down as the wind picks it up. I withdraw. Watch what I've unleashed on every channel. No one knows. Nothing can stop it. I burn. I don't need anyone. Closer now, so high I can't stop. One of the advantages of being retired is traveling, and we traveled to a salt mine in outside of Salzburg. Salt came to us from a silver spout, like royalty we ate on TV trays. Watched Steve Allen in black and white, sprinkled it on canned stew over rice, muskmelon, meals for two. Salt housed in a blue cylinder where the Morton's girl resists a drenching, wind having its way with her. When it rains, it pours, as it did one night. Rain, a silver curtain pulled around us, out on a Goodwill couch on the porch, a promise given, a promise kept. That night, we moved, brought that blue cylinder with us. One moist day, we ceremoniously shook out the last remaining crystals, the rounded tube of relic, ancient like the seas, signed and dated, meant like us to last. Part 2. We slid down steep tunnels into a mine, a residue of ancient seas, twisted and buried under rock before refrigeration, when white became gold. We're told that it preserved meat, sparked trade, cured cheese, served as currency. Taken over a taxed rulers built palaces in Vienna, their pillars white. Other mines dug deeply, preserved Hitler's stolen art, a massive plunder. But here's my advice. When deep inside a salt mine, lick the wall. One more, but maybe two if I can. My name is Marilyn, as you know, and I met the other Marilyn when I was quite young. And when we were growing up, they were filming Some Like It Hot in Coronado, California, even though it was supposed to be Florida. This was published in Miramar, a journal outside of Santa Barbara. Action, shouted Billy Wilder, and you ran in heels in that red dress down the back steps of the Hotel Del along the paved path to the beach, in that shimmering dress with a tiny heart cut out in the rear, revealing skin. Over 20 takes, each one the same to me. Lady, we circled you like hungry fish, you, fragile, wrapped in thick white terry cloth, not like that oversized celluloid tease, but translucent, like light through a negative. Everyone mesmerized. Even today, eager for every last scrap. So many takes, so much taken. There were no paparazzi then, only townsfolk with shiny eyes and pens poised. I didn't know anyone else named Marilyn, except for you and my pretty blonde aunt. I was 10. My skin was bronzed, gritty from riding a bucking rubber mat in green sea foam. Dark curls crested above a chest flat as sand. No one has ever asked me for my autograph. Rarely do I meet another Marilyn. When I do, we nod, because we know There's only one. And I'll read the last one. Marilyn and me. No, I'll read the very last one, which is back to the noir librarian. She tells what happens that night. As he was packing to leave me, I threw my negligee on the passenger seat of his car. I slipped it off like a nylon shadow, my pale skin liberated, illuminated in the moonlight like a satellite of a satellite, which was how I was starting to feel myself, a body visible only by reflected light, his shape a shadow moving in and out of sight behind the blinds, the backbeat of drawers and doors, banging, hangers, liquid slides, and music playing as I waited in the darkness. Let him leave. I'd had it with him anyway. His sullen moods, his unreasonable demands. He told me he never wanted to see me again. Well, he'd see me all right. He'd see me. I'd like to see him find a way not to see me. I'll be the moon. Noir librarian. Pick up a copy of Vroman.
That was awesome. Thank you, Marilyn. Virtual round of applause again. It looks like we have time for about 2 questions, so I'll go ahead and throw the first one at you. The first question is, why do you write poetry?
I don't know. I thought I'd write children's books because I had read thousands of them, But then when I went to write, which I always wanted to do, poetry came out. So that's what I do. I don't know.
It's just what called to you. It's just what you ended up doing it. Yeah. The next question is by Suzanne, and it is, what books would you recommend for younger poets just starting to write or become engaged with poetry?
Well, in my old days, I really loved children's poetry, and Myra Cone Livingston was one of my all-time favorite poets. And she's written a book. Oh boy, I can't think of the name of it now. But it's about when you're alone. When you're alone, it makes you Capone or something, And it's all about how don't make those bad rhymes when you're starting to write poetry. Just write what you know. So I think she would be a very good place to start. But Valerie Worth wrote small poems about little things like nails and dimes and pennies, and I found those inspirational as well.
Yeah. So it looks like we can squeeze in one more question. And the last question is, we're in such political times. Politics, national and local, are present in our day-to-day lives. Have you ever tried writing a socio-political poem?
For sure. Not this book. But yeah, I have a poem right now called Lockdown. So one of these days, maybe I'll write another book and it'll be in there.
Yeah. Well, awesome. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Marilyn. You were awesome. You're very awesome. So we'll go ahead and move on to our last author now. And last but not least, we have with us Miley Page, who is a former attorney. She has also studied energy medicine, and for over 13 years, she ran The Center, which is a healing collective that she founded. So I will go ahead and bring her on stage right now.
Hi. Let me apologize right up front because my dog's been barking at nothing all night. So if you hear him in the background, sorry about that. So The Infinite Now is a book that's how to navigate your life from an energetic versus thought-based perspective, which brings up the question, why am I an expert, or how can I talk about this? I did practice law for 10 years, and then I was introduced to energy healing. And one of my first practice sessions was on with a friend of mine, a fellow attorney, and she had these grapefruit-sized ovarian cysts in her lower abdomen. And as I was working on her, I could feel my fingers like sinking as the cyst was dissolving. And the 2 first cysts dissolved completely during the session, and then the next day, the 3rd one dissolved. But this book is not about energy healing. It's not, I have found the secret to energy healing. No. The first thought I had was, how does energy affect physical change, like actual physical change in your body like that? And then my second question was, and why doesn't it work all the time? Because I couldn't affect this change anytime I wanted. And this launched a 20-year research for me to discover what is energy and how does it work. And from working with, so I never did go back to law. As you can, I've been doing energy healing for 20 years. And in working with clients over the years, I've discovered that there's qualities to energy that most people don't realize. And so I wanted to write a practical guidebook on how to recognize energy and how to manipulate it. And by no means am I writing a book that says, because you have this information, you can manifest anything you want or heal anyone you want. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's kind of like when you're playing golf, and you hit that hole in one. And there's tips I can tell you on how to hit that hole in one. Keep your arms straight, fluid swing, that kind of thing. And there's also elements that are present when you're dealing with energy. Like I noticed there's the same 4 elements that were present when I had successful healings and when manifestation occurred. And so this book is more about how to harness in energy and optimize it for the best results, not to control it necessarily all the time. So instead of talking about energy, I want you to have an experience of it. So we're going to do a little exercise right now. So if you have a piece of white paper, and if you don't freak. It's very simple instructions. You can do this after the recording. So you take this white paper and put it down. And I'm going to teach you a simple technique on how to see energy. And the reason I'm going to use my hands is because the energy field is strongest around the hands and the head. Okay, so what you're going to do is, and the reason I'm using a white paper is because energy can be seen the easiest around white at first. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your finger like this, and you're going to slowly pull your finger away from each other. See? And you might see like this little worm of energy light, in between your fingers. Don't feel bad if you don't. It doesn't mean you're a failure. But it's the easiest way to see energy. And we do have a lot of energy that comes out of our hands. We're actually living energy antennas. We can transmit energy. We can receive energy. We can block energy. It's like germs. Just because you can't see energy doesn't mean it's not real. And so some of you might be thinking, okay, so that's a nice parlor trick, so who cares that I can see, this energy field. Throughout the book, I explain ways in which knowing how energy works helps you in life. For instance, I'll just take one example. Let's say you're having a great day and some jerk says something insulting to you. Or, you have a YouTube channel and you start reading the comments from the trolls and you're just like, and, you'll hear these other energy books that say, have a positive thought. Don't think negative. Well, there's a real energetic reason why it's hard to let go of a negative thought when you first have it. And telling yourself, let me slow down. Energy is not generic. It has a frequency. And frequency is like a spin. It's like a little tornado of energy that spins. And when you have a negative thought at first, it has a centrifugal force. It's like an energy that's spinning. So if you've ever been at an amusement park and you're sitting in that spinny ride and you're unfortunately on the end and you're getting squished and you can't work your way back in the middle because the centrifugal force is forcing you out. If you have a negative thought, like, I hate that guy, and you try to replace it to, I love that guy, it's just, I love that guy is just going to get thrown right out. So if you understand that from an energetic perspective, then there are some energetic hacks, and I share them in the book. Like one of them, and I can't explain why this works, it's in the book, but a shower, the running water, helps dissipate the spin of that negative energy. Like if you go to work and you've had a really bad day and everybody is pissing you off, or you've been at home all day and everybody is pissing you off, take a shower. That really helps. Or go in front of a fire and that energy burns off the negative energy. But let's say you're at work and you can't take a shower and you can't go to a fire. There's something else you can do wherever you are, which is distract yourself. And what distracting yourself does is it withdraws energy from that negative thought. So let's say that negative thought is like a plate spinning on a stick, right? So if you withdraw your energy from it, that plate starts to lose momentum, starts to slow down, and then it just falls off the stick. This is when you're thinking, okay, I'm over it. Screw him. I don't care. That energy, that thought has lost some of that energy. But sometimes we add energy to that spinning plate, okay? So an example of another swipe at the plate could be obsessing about the thing that the person said. Or another swipe at the plate could be plotting your revenge against the person, or repeating the story. Guess what that asshole did to me? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Guess what that jerk did to me? This is just like adding energy to that negative thought, and it anchors it in place. Which kind of brings up, something that's going on in the world today, which is there are some circumstances that have a huge negative energy field. Can you say pandemic? Can you say fires, social injustice, violence? Or maybe you're just like, with your mate 24/7 and you're ready to kill each other. There's a lot going on in the world that could instill fear and anger and overwhelm. And, if you're talking about this in terms of an energy field, it's a lot to deal with. You go online and you realize that there are a ton of depressed people, out there, because the heaviness of the fear and the overwhelm, it has an energy field. And when you have the whole world going through that, you're going to have a lot of heaviness in the world. So what's the solution? So this is where the infinite field comes into play. And this is not the strongest energy field, not a stronger energy field, but the infinite energy field. And when you can access this, you're better able energetically to deal with things. And let me just give you an example. Let's say you're just in your energy field. So you'd be like a glass of water, you're just, here's my energy field. And then a negative event is like a dropper full of dark green ink, oh, this is green. And then it squirts in and it completely turns dark green. And you feel overwhelmed and it's, you're not dealing with it. But let's say you're connected to the infinite energy field. So now instead of just the glass of water, you're connected to the ocean. And that same dropper full of dark ink goes in and it immediately dissipates. This is the benefit of being connected to the infinite energy field, which I explain how to access that in the book, because you're just going to have to trust me, like when you go to the beach and, you feel that peaceful feeling. It's not just the sand and the water. Well, actually, it is the water. It's a huge expanse of water. There's a lot of energy around the ocean, and the ocean is moving. So that's a lot of moving water. If you get around like a huge waterfall, like in Lake Victoria, I think it's in Africa, the energy that's generated from that moving water is intense, and it's very helpful. The thing I can the biggest tip I can give you is that gratitude, in terms of an attitude, that's as much a poet as I'm going to get tonight. Gratitude has the highest frequency of any thought. I didn't want to say love because love can be kind of complex and convoluted, but gratitude has a very high frequency. So when you find yourself getting depressed or overwhelmed or angry, if you start thinking about things you're grateful for, and I know that sounds hokey, I know that sounds oversimplified and stuff, but you're just going to trust me that thoughts have energy fields and gratitude is a high one. So when you start thinking of things that you're grateful for, your energy field increases and your circumstances in your life change. And so in the book, we start out talking about how thoughts have energy, just like we did here. But then we go to, there's other energetic consequences. For instance, your energy has 3 lines, what you think, what you feel, and what you do. So if you think no, you feel hell no, and you say yes, then you've created an incongruency within your energy body that has a real physical energetic consequence. And I talk about that. I also talk about, the trolls on the internet, and they make negative and jealous comments. Well, there is a very real energetic consequence for that behavior, and it's not good. So, they're actually weaving their own negative circumstances, and trust me, it comes back like a boomerang, kind of like. Let me see. That's, basically all I have to say about the book. So if there's any questions, I guess I'll ask Max to come back.
Howdy, that was awesome. Thank you. So it looks like we do have a question. And the question is, how can you stop negative energy from affecting your daily life?
You mean what I just talked about? No, I'm kidding. Okay, so here's the thing with energy. When you have, okay, I think I know what they're saying. Oh, my son just made a comment. Hi, Tay. He's so funny. He's acting like he doesn't know me. Okay, so here's what I hear from a lot of my clients. I'll get a client that says, I have a very negative husband, and I come home and I see everything positive, and my husband sees everything negative, and it's very oppressive to be around this energy. And that person can't go anywhere because, they live together, The old school about energy is that they used to tell you to protect yourself against negative energy. So they'd give you exercises like picture a mirrored ball around you so that it reflects back to them. That was old school. It was more defensive. The new thought about this is that you bring your energy field bigger than the other person. So if you start thinking of, things to be grateful for, like, okay, he may be negative, but he's loyal. He's a good provider. He's a good mate during this pandemic. You start thinking of things that are bigger than what's wrong with the person, and it expands your energy field and makes it easier to deal with. I have something else to say about that, but I won't. Go ahead.
That was a really good answer. Yeah. So the next question is, how did you get into this work?
I was actually on maternity leave, and I was taking a yoga class at the local Y, and this woman named Elizabeth Terrell was in the class, and I only met her once. I thought she was really nice, and then she moved to San Diego, and then 6 months later she called me and said, I've been having dreams about you, and you're supposed to enroll in my 2-year energy healing class. And I was like, I've never heard of energy healing. I'm not interested, and thank you very much. And she said, well, can I practice on you? And so she did some work on me, like she did some muscle testing, and she discovered that I had an incontinence problem, from birthing the big kids. I'd had a nose job, like as a teenager, and she detected that from the muscle testing. I had a goiter that was growing, and she detected that. I mean, it wasn't visible when she did it, but she detected all of that through muscle testing. And I was like, okay, I need to know more about this. This is weirdly interesting. And it just pulled me in a whole different direction than I had started. And I haven't gone back.
Yeah. So the next question is, to stabilize yourself energetically, do you focus on the energy inside yourself or coming from outside? And I think you kind of answered that a little bit with the growing your energy in the first question.
Yeah, but that's a good question. actually, and it's a very subtly sophisticated question, actually. Um, okay, let me put it this way. When you have a higher energy, you know, our energy field is like a net, okay? When you have higher thoughts and your love, that net is like a finely woven like net, okay? When you have a lot of negative thoughts, your energy field gets porous and has lots of holes, okay? So when you get around somebody who's negative and they throw negative thoughts your way, if you are, so the answer is get centered in yourself, because that's the only thing you can control. If you can raise your energy field, then your energy field gets very finely woven like this, and that person's is porous. So let's say they send an energetic arrow at you, it bounces right off you and goes right to them, and it actually pierces them because their energy field is unprotected because it's so negative and it has all the holes in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that made perfect sense. So there is one last question,
Okay.
and it is meditation the best way to get into the infinite?
It's one of the ways, and it's a very good way. It's a very good way because I go into this in the book. But when you're in the meditating, you're in the present. You're not thinking about the past or the future, and that's actually the Haley. That's my daughter. You actually access, it's kind of like a sweet spot for accessing a great amount of energy when you're in the present moment. So meditating is an excellent way to do that.
Yeah, that's my choice personally. Meditation is what I do.
Yeah,
And
excellent.
it's excellent, yeah. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Miley. Another
Thank you.
virtual round of applause for you. And with all that out of the way, we'll go ahead and end the event there. Let me go ahead and bring the other two authors back up real quick. Awesome. Thanks y'all so much for doing this, for presenting your books, for talking about them and taking questions. You were incredible. Thank you so much to our wonderful audience for that, for throwing all those questions out to us. And with that all out of the way, I hope you all have a good night. Thanks y'all so much.